Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of the Yahoo Sports Network. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, the always excellent Steve Jones Jr. Steve, good morning. How are you?
Feeling good, feeling great. Happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. Nekias, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Red shirt, white ceiling. Let's have a good pod.
Starts various freestyles. Yeah, let's have some fun. We are still waiting on more news to trickle in on the NBA side. Sans ownership / investigation division. We're just going to set that to the side for a minute as we wait for more information on that front. LA, you are safe on this podcast. We do have one transaction to talk about, and we're going to zoom out and just do a little general team outlook on the teams involved in said trade. We are talking about the Charlotte Hornets and the Cleveland Cavaliers. You know, we can't get enough of the Southeast Division. And as we alluded to a couple of pods ago, hey, the Cavs are a good team that should probably have a little bit more juice in terms of the conversation around them. So we're doing some scheduled talk. But we have a trade between the two. The Hornets receiving Dennis Schröder from the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers receiving Tre Mann from the Charlotte Hornets. The Cavs want to clear a little bit more room under these various aprons. They still have to re-sign James Harden per Mark Stein. That seems likely. That's coming soon-ish. And they are also in the hunt for a wing. They've been linked to Peyton Watson, potential sign and trade opportunities there with the Denver Nuggets. They have been linked to Jonathan Kuminga, unrestricted free agent. Either one requires a little bit more maneuverability. And so I think that is where the financial basis of this trade came from. But so, Steve, let's start with the Hornets side of this. Dennis Schröder, now a member of the Charlotte Hornets, they made one big point guard move earlier this offseason, trading LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves. They re-signed Kobe White. They now add Dennis Schröder. How do you feel about the Schröder fit in Charlotte?
I think it's a really good fit. Before we get to Schröder in Charlotte, it's just the Dennis Schröder cycle is undefeated. Nekias, this is the 9th time that he's been traded, I'm pretty sure. I counted this morning. One day we should just have a game where to see at the end of the pod if you can guess all the teams he's played on since like 2023. But Dennis Schröder goes to team that's good. Dennis Schröder plays well. Team pays Dennis Schröder because then they need Dennis Schröder. Then they trade Dennis Schröder. Dennis Schröder plays well. Dennis Schröder, you know what I mean? Like it's just the same thing. But knowing the Dennis Schröder formula, I like the fit. I think he's in a good position to be himself for a team that wants to be competitive and is still kind of building. So there's enough of a runway for Dennis Schröder to initiate, to attack. I think he solidifies their point guard rotation in the sense that people were wondering, okay, well, you got rid of LaMelo Ball. Who's going to be the point guard? It can't be Kobe White. It could. I mean, they were out there starting Sion James last year. So, yeah, we can have people who initiate. We can get the movement. We can go side to side. Dennis Schröder will give us an advantage at times, but we're not necessarily depending on Dennis Schröder to elevate this team, which always feels like the best place for Dennis Schröder to be. Sounds disrespectful. I don't mean it as disrespect. He just ends up playing well in those environments. And so his compete level in this league on both ends of the floor should help Charlotte as far as what they're trying to build with this next phase of what they're doing. The curiosity I had, you know, because this is a team that I think Dennis Schröder can help elevate them, considering they feel like they have or are trying to build or get closer to an identity. Question I had for you, Nekias, is you had bars for Charlotte after the LaMelo trade, and you said they have to stick the landing. So I'm curious to where you are at with Charlotte, adding Dennis Schröder, having more of a totality to their offseason. Are you nodding the head? Are you going buzz buzz? Or are you calling and trying to get the nest taken away?
That is an unbelievable question. I think for me, it's like if you're walking across the street and you see someone familiar, you get them with the quick head nod. I think it's one of those more than like the vigorous, I am nodding, yes, the offseason is an A+, right? Because I think conceptually I understand everything they're going to do. And as you alluded to, I understood how Charlotte landed on this. I understand the appeal of Naz Reid in Charlotte, and I am still super intrigued with his fit with this roster. But it's like, hey, there is like a cultural, just off-court element to the LaMelo experience that is going to be very hard, if not impossible, to replicate, if not fully sustain. And so the basketball version has to be very good. And so when you follow that up with adding Grayson Allen and getting more shooting in the room. You get Royce O'Neal to get some more shooting and ideally some versatility and lineup flexibility in the room. You now trade for Dennis Schröder to, as you said, solidify the point guard room. Like, is Dennis Schröder going to be LaMelo Ball? Absolutely not. Is Dennis Schröder as good as LaMelo Ball? He is not. But I think if you're just looking at what do we need someone that can initiate for us. Like, Dennis can do that. Not a high-level passer, but when you think about the baked-in off-ball movement that Charlotte has, that should make the decision-making tree a little bit easier for guards within that system if they're able to continue to generate advantages. Dennis can do that. And more importantly, if we're just talking about getting skill sets in the room, getting a guard that could just puncture the paint without a screen, I think is pretty valuable for what Charlotte wants to do offensively. And like Dennis Schröder can still do that. Kobe White also a good driver, so don't want to sell him short in any manner. But Dennis Schröder is a guy that can just put his head down and say, I'm just winning this drive. Like, aesthetically, he's one of my favorite drivers in the league just because of how low he dips when he gets downhill. And it's like, your shoulder is nearly touching the court. How are you doing this? And there's the scoop and you go from there. And so just adding that, and your only cost is Tre Mann. You are adding salary to your books, but you are in position to take on that money in large part because of the LaMelo trade and how it was structured. So you have the room to do this. This isn't a super long-term commitment going back to the overall Dennis Schröder bit where he plays well, gets paid, etc. It's not like Schroeder's on a 4-year guaranteed deal or anything like that. So if it works, the salary is solid. If it does not work, we have literal proof, hence this conversation, that the salary is tradable. It's going to be further into it by the time you decide to move him if you're going to do that. And so I like the fit. Overall, I zoom out with the Charlotte offseason and I say I understand what the vision is. I am more so now in the mode of, can we get some preseason tape on film? Can we get to some regular season games so I can see how effective this actually is? But as far as how they mapped out these moves, they all make sense to me. There's a logic to what they're doing. There's a logic to what they're building. There seems to be an understanding of what types of players and what types of skill sets they need to at least attempt to replicate LaMelo thing. Like when we talked about the Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal trades, okay, do they shoot like LaMelo Ball? No, but they do get threes up in high volume. They did experiment in Phoenix, taking more threes off the dribble, et cetera. Okay, we can replicate some of that skill set and some of that collective size and switchability. With Dennis Schröder, again, is he as good of a playmaker than LaMelo? Absolutely not. He provides probably a little bit more downhill juice than LaMelo does. And so that collective talent, that collective skill set building is where okay, this is how we replicate the LaMelo experience. Get these skill sets from different players, we all gel, and then bank on internal improvement from Con Knueppel, from Brandon Miller. Let's get more from our young bigs. We'll see how ready Christian Anderson is, their lottery pick. We'll see how ready Heinz Steinbeck is. And so I get it. So now I just want to see it, if that makes sense.
And I get it. I understand. I think it's Charlotte has assembled a collection of people. And I think this is an interesting year where, okay, we did well last year. Maybe we didn't hit our goals, but this isn't the thing that's going to take us to the next level. I know there's going to be staggering, but Dennis Schröder, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Grant Williams, you got people who know how to play the game of basketball and kind of fit into what you want to do offensively. So I kind of like that. So salute to Charlotte. Where are you at with the Cleveland Cavalier portion of this trade, Nekias? Shout out to Allen Iverson. Tre Mann is a Cav.
Shout out to Allen Iverson. It's unbelievable. And so, as alluded to up top, I think this move is more about, can we clear a little bit more apron room so we can complete our offseason? So in a literal sense, I have an incomplete grade for Cleveland because I think this move is contingent on, we now have more room. What is the James Harden contract going to look like? So you can judge that, because I do think he is just going to be back. And then from there, it's okay, what is the wing move that we are doing? Because as funny as this probably is going to sound, they have not replaced the Dean Wade loss as he's in Philly. They have not replaced tall wing / forward that can slide down to the floor for us. And so a lot of this, I think, is we now have more room to acquire a Peyton Watson or acquire a Jonathan Kuminga. If they're able to land one of those, then I am more intrigued with this Cleveland Cavaliers roster, because I think they just have a core four in Donovan Mitchell. Congrats on the contract. Congrats on marriage. And also just very good at basketball. You bring back James Harden. You have Evan Mobley. You have Jared Allen. That is a quartet that is very good. Mm-hmm. It is more so about rounding out the depth and that depth being healthy enough to make the talent matter.
I think it's an interesting time for Cleveland. I think it's an interesting move. It's clear there is a pivot, but what is the pivot, to your point, as far as them ending their offseason? And what does that pivot mean in this Eastern Conference where everyone sees opportunity and a lot of teams have loaded up and tried to change the math? Like, moving on from Dennis Schröder, I understand. I think he was there to help that version of that team, but I don't think it was a long-term perspective, like anchor type beat. What's the next step for this Cleveland Cavalier group is going to be interesting. And so you mentioned Peyton Watson. You mentioned Jonathan Kuminga. This is a safe space. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this not them not trying the DeAndre Hunter thing again?
Okay, that is not where I thought you were going. Oh my. That's not where I thought you were going with that. Kinda. They're trying to get another young wing in the room. I guess we're stretching this out and we're being respectfully messy. I guess Kuminga would be closer to Hunter than Watson is, but like, yeah, I wasn't ready for that one. That's a good question. Okay,
I got him, but it's like, okay, so I understand the want and need for that type of player, right? And that's no disrespect to Kuminga or Peyton Watson, but we've kind of seen the attempt. And what does that mean for the best lineups? What does that mean for the rotation? What does that overall do for Cleveland? Does that fix the problem, or are you just trying to assemble something that's a little bit different? That's where I get intrigued with what Cleveland's tried to do. But this is a good team. This is a really good team. You know, we talked about Denver a few pods ago, but like Cleveland is a good team with continuity. You got another year, James Harden, supposedly, allegedly, I guess. Like James Harden still could do the second funniest thing that he's ever done.
Second funniest. Okay.
But I mean, I did play with him, so I'm going to go eighth. But he could do something completely different that makes this like interesting. But he helped elevate those bigs. Evan Mobley took a leap. Jared Allen got more aggressive. Donovan Mitchell was very, very good. So like, this is not a team that should be slept on in this conference. I just want to see what the complete vision is. So I don't want to steal your Charlotte bit, but it's like, okay, what's this whole roster look like? What are your new attempts? What are you trying to do? And what does that do for your team? Can you take what you did last year, build on it, and get off to a hot start? And now we're talking Cleveland Cavalier top 3 seed early, and the East has changed. Like, we'll have those conversations. So I'm intrigued there. I think it should be some fun stuff. Also, you just no respect for Mario Hezonja.
That's great. Well, see, I'm glad that it's official now. I guess that would be my very short answer to that. But I am indeed intrigued with the Mario Hezonja signing, because if he can shoot, that's a lot of size. That is some ball skill for you. He should help. The question I was going to ask is in relation to another young wing on the roster, or another young forward, however you want to designate him. What exactly, if anything, because the answer could just be nothing, but what does the linking to Peyton Watson, the linking to Jonathan Kuminga, what does this say about Cleveland's general faith in Jalen Tyson? Because that's the part. The part that's like kind of. Go ahead.
I don't think it's a direct shot at Jalen Tyson. I think they're counting on internal development from him, Naquan Tomlin. Like they're counting on their younger guys getting better. But I think for Jalen Tyson, it's okay. It can't just be Jalen Tyson. You know what I mean? And so, like, I don't know what the trade would end up being. I don't know how they're going to configure things. I don't know if Max Strus is still going to be there. But we can't end up with just Jalen Tyson. So I think it's more, okay, we need Jalen Tyson plus to kind of have the versatility that we want to be able to kind of have one of our bigs out there, go double big, feel confident with different lineups. That's more of the thing that I think they're trying to go through. If Jalen Tyson grows and develops and takes last year and builds on top of it, Cleveland would take that in a heartbeat. I think they're trying to put themselves in a position where we don't have to put the whole bankroll on that happening.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Because I was just looking like, I enjoyed a lot of what the Jalen Tyson season was last year, at least during the regular season. There was the cool-off period, and then we get to the playoffs, and it's just like, hey, are y'all going to play Jalen Tyson? He can kind of do some stuff. And so that and how the playoffs kind of went from a minutes perspective into, we sure do want these wings. That's going to cost a lot of money. It's like, am I higher on Jalen Tyson now than Cleveland appears to be? But I think that's a fair way to put in a fair way to frame it. That is probably a realistic way of how they're looking at it. Like, let's get Tyson and make sure we have some insurance in case there is like a plateau or anything like that. So I think that is fair, Steve.
Fantastic. Final question from me. Is Cleveland a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference as of August 18th?
I think they should be. And I feel like as of August 18th, that feels like, that probably sounds like a hot take in light of like what Philly's done. We're going to get the full Tatum healthy experience in Boston High. But it's just like, when any semblance of healthy, like Donovan Mitchell plus Harden plus Mobley plus Allen, that should just get you 47 to 50 regular season wins. Like, I think, are they top 4 in playoff equity? Like, that's a different question. I would probably still say yes at the top of my head at the very least. But like, during the regular season, they should just churn out wins. Like, they have a pick and roll attack that is elite. They still have a lot of off-ball functionality. They can continue to invert things. You talked about second half of the year, the aggression that we saw from Jared Allen, on top of what he normally does as a screener, defender, rebounder, etc. Like, if their core 4 plays like 58 to 60 games together, they should be flirting, not eclipsing 50 wins. Like, I think they should just be a top 4 seed. I think the playoffs is where it gets into deeper questions about sustainability and things like that. But yeah, they should be a top 4 seed.
Well, I'm glad you talked about them. I want to talk about y'all. Y'all stick with us. We'll be back after a break with more Dunker Spot.